I think there's like a magic or an energy to it where you just have to cross, and if they're supposed to cross, they're supposed to cross. And I think that was one of them times where it was like, that was meant to happen, and if it didn't happen, if I did decline that photo at that time, it was going to happen at the second time. All of those things just solve problems too easily for, I think, creatives. And I think if we do have like a limited palette to play with, that we have to get outside of our comfort zone. We have to force ourselves to actually think, and I think that is really important within like any creative industry, really. It actually happens in front of you, and this moment fulfills, and you're just like, oh my god, I almost predicted something was going to happen here, and something did. I didn't know what it was, but something happened. You're there to capture it. Amazing. Doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. You? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad to have you in, mate. I'm glad we got acquainted through our good friend Tom.
I'll
shout him out now so we don't forget. Otherwise, he'll be funny.
Yeah, we'll get a message. Did you mention me? Did you mention me in the podcast?
Yeah. He's probably already messaging us now. Have I had a mention yet?
It's vibrating. I'm sure it's him. Yeah, the phone's going in the pocket. Yeah.
So let's get straight into it. I read online you've described your photography work as a compulsion to create. Yeah. So what was that first compulsion that made you pick up a camera?
It's just that, like, you know, that creative itch. You know, when you've got to make something. It's almost like if you haven't done something for the day, and you just feel like something that's not quite sitting right. I get a bit pent up like that. So if I've not been and created something, then I do feel a bit like.
I say it on here all the time. I feel compelled to play music every day, even if it's just like sitting at a piano for 5 minutes. Or, but yeah, same as you in that respect. But what first made you pick up a camera? What made you think, I'm going to become a photographer? I'm going to start taking photos.
I don't think there was ever like a stage where you think, I'm going to be a photographer. It's sort of just, you just sort of like ease into it. I think so. I found out pretty late, even though my school at the time knew I was dyslexic. I found out years later. But through doing that, through the whole like dyslexic journey, which is obviously a load of fun, isn't it? Because going through school, it's just like, oh, you can't spell, that's handy.
How old was you when you found out you was dyslexic?
I think I was in my teens.
Yeah.
I think my education systems knew when I was like primary school, but just no one ever said it. It wasn't a thing that was sort of really spoken about.
Yeah.
So I got to the point where I was pushed. I almost, as a creative, you are. I think there's a lot of dyslexics that are in creative industry, and I just sort of fell into that as an outlet because that's what I was drawn towards. Like reading and writing wasn't a strong suit of mine, so being able to go out and produce something. Like originally, I thought I was going to be like some sort of artist or something like that. The idea of creating and that was really fulfilling, and I thought I'll go into do like graphics or like something within the media industry. I didn't know what.
Yeah.
I like drawing and that as a kid, and took that through and got interested in that. It's like through, you know, when you didn't make choices at school and get into college and all that sort of stuff. Like so I did that. I'm sure you probably went through a similar path yourself, like discovering music.
Yes, it's similar. I mean, I went to Lindsay in Cleethorpes, which was a performing arts school. So all our options was kind of based around the arts. Yeah. So yeah, very similar. I did music, production and media when I was at school. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school. It was just subjects I found interesting. Do you know what I mean? And anyway, they did the media and production because I kind of saw them as kind of satellites for my music in a way. And I thought they might come in quite handy, like for all the things you do alongside your music later on in life. And it has, I guess, it has come in handy. But not career-wise, only hobby-wise.
Yeah.
So I pretty much took my options to, to progress my hobbies.
But you know what? I think there's that great crossover when your career and your hobbies do just collide.
Yeah, but I'm trying to build my hobbies into a career now.
Yeah.
You know, which I never thought I'd do in a sense. You know.
I think that's what we're all working towards, surely, like through our lives. If we can literally just do our pastime and get paid for it, that is like a win-win.
Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah, but I don't know. I kind of got career driven for a bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Then again, I've never really known what I want to do for a career. So.
Do you think anyone does?
I don't know. Some people tend to have it proper sussed out, don't they?
I think they tend to be like lawyers and things like I'm going to be a doctor when I grow up.
Are you a bit square?
maybe we're just not cut for that.
But the idea of doing that just seems boring to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Just the idea of sitting down and doing spreadsheets.
But at the same time, I'm happy to do. I mean, my job's all right. You know, I'm happy to do that. But I live for my hobbies. You know, I don't live for my work.
No.
I've got it right in that respect. But yeah, if I could turn this into a job, that'd be great.
It's looking like pretty much that. It looks like it's there. There's a shiny table. Someone's doing well.
just faking it till we make it, mate. So, back to your photography. What were some of like the first photographs you was taking? What caught your eye as a budding photographer?
God, I think when I started out, so a lot of people don't realise that I've got a big love for black and white photography, and that's where it started. Because I got into college, and the option was I could take photography. And I was like, this is going to be a cool like fill subject. And I got there and I was like, right, jumping into black and white photography. The old days of digital was just starting to come about, but it wasn't really there yet. So it was black and white film.
Spent a lot of time in the dark room at college, and was you at Grimsby Institute?
No, so I was in John Leggett in Scunthorpe.
All right, you're from Scunthorpe originally?
Originally, yeah.
All right, okay.
That way out.
You live here now, though, don't you?
I live here now, yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's like black and white photography. So like you the way we was taught, you was looking like the past masters and things. So it was all like high contrast, graphical stuff. The work of like Cartier-Bresson, that type. If you know who that is,
some of that seems a bit alien to me, mate.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like the big hitters that was in like the history. I mean, work if you go, that looks like it could be a famous picture, that type of thing. You know, the iconic type of pictures that you'd sort of see and go, I think I've seen that somewhere before. That was the type of work that we'd see and got inspired by. So that was what really drove me to begin with. And then I think you go through this process of like trying to find your voice. And I mean, it's a long process. It's gone through.
Was you almost trying to replicate them in the early days then? That was your inspiration, trying to achieve the sort of shots and style that they was doing?
Basically, yeah. I think that's how we all learn, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm sure it's the same with like music. We all pick up a guitar and try and learn.
Yeah, learning other people's music, other people's hand positions, things like that. You're dead right. It seems like there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
Been thinking about while I've been deliberating on it today, how much crossover there might be, which we'll get into a bit later on, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your work features, I've had a look through it, obviously, with you coming on, and I'd seen some of it before from Tom showing me and whatnot, but it's very sort of seaside centric, isn't it?
It's just a little bit,
very seaside centric. So what is it about the seaside, and what makes that, you know, so fun for you to shoot?
Well, number one, obviously, it's on my doorstep, so that is obviously a massive bonus that I've got. Yeah. I'm not going miles out of my way to try and do something, because I mean, if it was going to be hard work to go and do something, you wouldn't do it every day, would you? Or you maybe try to. I mean, maybe you should do something that's hard work to do. But something you could just literally fall into and go and do. So the coast is on my doorstep, but I think also there's my love for the coast as well, and I'm sure a lot of people do love the seaside and that. And for me, I think there's like a lot wrapped up in like childhood memories. It's all the good times, and I think that's what a lot of people are drawn to. It's been said before that I'm possibly like chasing my childhood. Yeah, it's that idea that there's something to discover there, and it's probably like a bit of. I mean, I'm almost on that path of self-discovery myself. Yeah. Like, what is it that I'm really looking for? And it gets really deep. And I mean, there's the surface level, which is I'm taking sometimes pretty, sometimes something a little bit grotesque. I mean, to me, an overflowing bin is quite interesting. You know, to others that's just weird. But then there's beautiful scenes of like sunset, you know, or twilight on the beach where it just looks magical. So, and everything in between that.
So, I've read online that you described sort of that seaside location as a social mixing part. Yeah. Which it is. It truly is. It's you know, it's a good way to describe it. It really is. But is there any sort of moments or interactions that's, you know, really, really sort of solidified that concept for you, that it is a social mixing part? Because you must meet some characters when you're out and about doing your work.
Every day. Yeah. There's always a character. But I think that's the thing. And I think this is what draws me back, and it's drawn me back for almost a decade now. That you can be walking. I mean, Cleethorpes itself is just a backdrop for me. It's a beautiful backdrop because it's got that sort of age patina to it, where everything's, you know, some of it's falling to pieces, but that's part of the charm.
I find Cleethorpes and other similar seaside towns like Blackpool, Scarborough, things like that, they're so quintessentially English.
That's it.
that a lot of other places have lost.
But I think some of that is the fact that there's not as much money pumped into it. So it has to stretch a little bit further. But then you've got the charm of things like hand-painted signs and things that are still around from, 40, 50 years ago, that are still being maintained today rather than being replaced by just these plastic, horrible, neon-y, well, not even neon, but you know what I mean? That disposable stuff that is just going to age with the sun, and then 1 year later it just looks horrible. So I think you've got that. But then the whole mixing pot, you've just got so many people that just turn up here. And literally the train station, as you know, is opposite that fairground. So straight off the trains and pouring straight onto the beach. But you've got that many different people descending.
Very, very popular tourist destination, isn't it?
Incredibly popular.
Very, very popular, yeah.
It's even just to hearing all the accents, obviously, we don't hear it as much, but when I go anywhere else in the country, you go, God, you're North. God, you're Northern. But yeah, you definitely hear a lot. And there's a lot of people as well. With it being in the North, everyone seems very friendly. So if you get anyone from further north, they're quite interested. Oh, what are you doing with a camera? Or what are you doing down here? And you get them into those conversations. You get to meet people and have those conversations about who they are, where they're from, and what they're up to on that particular day.
And that's a lot of the enjoyment for you, is it?
I think meeting people, yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes there's times where you don't actually go and interact. But
would you say that, knowing that there could be one of them interactions every time you go out and photograph the same location, do you think that kind of motivates you in a sense to keep going back and shooting the same locations?
Yeah, I think so, because I think there's it's always interesting if you can find someone and have like a genuine connection with them, and you've got something to actually talk to them about. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want that? I mean, we're all searching for a connection at the end of the day, aren't we?
Yeah, 100%.
Whatever that's going to be. But yeah, I mean, it really is interesting meeting new people, finding out what their stories are and where they're from and what they're up to. Maybe it's just because I'm a little bit nosy. There's a little bit of that, you just want to go and stick your nose in. What you up
Preaching
to?
to the choir, mate. I'm trying to chat to people for a living. I'm trying to pick people's brains.
Maybe we should swap for a week. We'll give you a camera.
I'd be shy here, mate. That's why I got these boys on board. I ain't got a clue what I'm doing. You'd think I'd have had some sort of like acumen with the camera, going into a podcasting project, especially a video podcasting project. Audio's not too bad, but I ain't got a clue, mate. Honestly, he had the camera set up the other day. There was like some zebra lines on the screen. I thought it was a goner, mate. I thought that was the end of the episode.
The camera's dead. That's it. Get a new one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, what are your optimal shooting conditions, Dan?
Absolute optimum.
Yeah,
it's very precise for me. I'm a little bit, a little bit like particular on this.
Yeah. I mean, I gauged that from reading online, and that's why I thought I'd get you to go into it a little bit.
So I shoot in all sorts of different conditions. There's always something that's going on. But I would say optimum is late August is the time, or time of the year anyway. Probably just after sunset, so you're looking at like twilight into blue hour with a little bit of haze, no clouds, completely blue sky. Is just something about that quality of light that you get at that time of the day, that time of the year. It's almost like the dust is settling, like something's happened. It's just that moment where there's a little bit of like electric in the air. Just before the lights turn on, it's that moment, and you've got about half an hour. It tends to be the last few weekends of August, so I will wait all year for literally a few hours worth of shooting, and that will be probably the time that I make most of the images that I would consider I'm really happy and successful.
That's so interesting. Yeah. That there's just that one window in a year.
Yeah, But I think some of that maybe it's down to like my thought process as well, but I think there's something like visual. I suppose it's like music, isn't it? If you hear something, you go, yes.
Yeah.
You just know instantly, like, yes. I think it's a little bit like that, and I think this is where maybe there is a crossover with the music, and you just tune into, oh my God, that's exactly what I need. And I think when I see the lights and the conditions and that end of day, it's that sort of like, just waiting for something to happen. Like, you don't want the day to end, and it's that sort of magic at the end of summer. You know, like as a kid, you don't want the summer holidays to ever end, do you?
Yeah.
I think it's that, you know, like hanging on to the last
anxiety sets in that you're going to get sent to bed soon, and you're hanging on till the end.
So you've got to be absolutely nuts in the last half an hour. That's the pictures that I'm going to be looking for, because guaranteed there'll be some kid that's just come out the sea. The parents have dried them off. They've got the clothes on. 2 seconds later, you turn away and they are back in the water. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah,
it's such a used location as well, isn't it? Like, I can't remember if it was this Christmas just gone or the one before. I was living in Cleethorpes near to the front, so we went for a walk on Christmas Day along the beach, and there was kids playing on the beach on Christmas Day. You know, even on Christmas Day it was being used. So
there's something quite special about that.
Yeah,
nice. And that's probably more for the locals. We get a lot of the locals down here, don't we? All times of the year, and we
use it all year round. Yeah,
yeah. I guess being out most of the year as well, I get to see them. So you spot who's who and who's going to be the locals, and then who's the tourists that are coming in during the summer. And yeah, that's quite an interesting divide as well.
So when I was looking at your work, when I was looking at your photos, the feeling I got from looking at them was like, it looks like you've got some sort of watch and you've managed to sort of pause time, you know, and you've really managed to capture that second in time. Is that intentional? Are you looking for those shots when you're taking them, or is it something about in your review process, like they're the shots that stand out to you and they're the ones you want to publish?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you want to almost go, no, I meant intentionally to do every single picture, and there is ones that are intentional like that. But then there's stuff that I'll just shoot that's more of a gut reaction. So it's almost like a bit of a feeling that you know something's going to happen, or you get a sense of something that's going on in the background or something around you, and you just lean into that a little bit.
So that you're always looking for a moment, you're always sort of
but sometimes
analysing what's going on around you and just waiting for that perfect sort of moment to present itself.
Yeah, but then there's sometimes where you don't really realise it's going to happen. Like you have a feeling about something. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, like when it's almost like a sixth sense. Like I knew that was going to happen, that thing, but I didn't know exactly what it was. But I knew there was someone going to do something around here because there's a bit of a buzz, there's a bit of an energy about it. I don't know, it's a weird thing. And I think the more time you spend out on the streets photographing, and especially like photographers will resonate with this, I think, you do get a bit of a sixth sense for something when moments are starting to line up. And sometimes they come into, it actually happens in front of you. And this moment fulfills, and you're just like, oh my God, I almost predicted something was going to happen here, and something did. I didn't know what it was, but something happened. And if you're there to capture it, amazing.
Just a universe aligned for that one shot.
Yeah. And you know what? The more you watch and the more you become aware, the more that happens. It's really weird. It really is.
Would you say that happens often now?
You never can predict it. You just have to be, like just receptive to it, I think is probably the best way to sort of describe it.
That, you know, I can relate to that because there's songs that you write as a musician, but then there's songs that are just delivered to you. Do you know what I mean? Like there's songs where you really have to spend weeks working them and writing them, then the songs just fall out the sky.
Yeah.
You know, and it sounds like a similar situation with what you're describing. Like there's some things you work at, but then there's moments that just align and you get the perfect result.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There is the times when you will just walk along and go, oh my God, that's just perfect. That's just a beautiful moment. And there will be those little nuggets of moments where you're just thinking, oh my God, that's so just poignant. I don't know what it is, but there might just be maybe a person walking down the street and maybe just there's an energy about them, something like that. And you just have to photograph that one little moment. And it just presents itself quite innocently to you. And it's just a case of, oh, okay, that's that, and capture it. But then I think there's times when you just have to almost, and it's not like a trigger happy thing, but it's maybe more of a series of maybe 4 or 5 frames and just teasing something out of a situation. And there's everything in between. So, yeah, I think it's a case of just being aware that there's moments happening all the time. And if you get really lucky and you're there enough and you're receptive, and these are words that are being echoed by many a photographer, that you can come away with just absolute gold at the end of the day.
And it's like you said, the more you do it, the more of them opportunities that present themselves. And it's the same with like songwriting. Like they say the ratio is, for every 10 songs you write, only one of them's a single. You know, so the more songs you write, the more good songs you're gonna, you know, end up with. So it resonates. But street photography is quite an intimate style of photography, isn't it? How do you navigate that sort of fine line between being observant and being intrusive? Because for someone like myself, I think that, you know, I don't think I've ever been papped, so to say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know what the feeling would be like for myself. I wouldn't personally mind, I don't think, but I'd get what they're doing it for. But I can imagine some people must be like, the fuck are you doing? You know?
Yeah. And you do get that. And I think there's a little bit of intuition over the years where you do get a bit of a sense of how someone might react. And maybe it's just through like reading body language and what they're up to. And I couldn't exactly tell you, but again, maybe it's just more of a bit of a sense or intuition about how someone might be. Yeah, you know, you just sort of get a good vibe or a bad vibe from someone. I think there's a little bit of that. But a lot of the time, the way that I work, and especially with a smaller camera, it's less intrusive, and I don't always shoot in a way that looks deliberate. So a lot of the time, the people that are in the frames that I'm making the pictures of don't realise that I'm actually photographing them. Yeah. And I don't always want to let them know, because I don't want to interrupt if it's a family moment, for example, I don't want to interrupt their day. And
I guess it's that, like, the second someone puts, like for me, the second someone puts a camera on me, I instinctively feel odd. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess that'd take away from the magic of your shots.
That's exactly it. There's another phrase for it, and it's called bruising the scene. I mean, you might intentionally do it. You might be looking for that reaction, and I know people that do work like that.
Okay.
And sometimes I will go up to people and say I am having that interaction, and it might be a chance for a portrait at that point. Less so that I would pose them, because as soon as, like you say, they become more awkward in front of the camera, and I want that natural kind of look. But again, I'm not looking for anything that takes away from them. What I want to do is tell their story from a point of view of the positive. And I know a lot of photographers out there, especially people that are starting, that look for the negative all the time. And I really can't get across like strong enough. You don't have to do that. You can celebrate things. And that's what I really want to do with my work. I want to celebrate life and enjoyment and everything else. And I might shoot as much as I can do, but the moments that I want to share are the moments of, the best ones are pure joy, just that excitement and moments where people are enjoying themselves and having fun, and you know, the best parts of the day, the best parts of your life, and that's what I want to capture.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Yeah, you're dead right though. People often lean into the negative. Same with anything in it, YouTube, podcasting. Like, people want clicks, don't they? People want stuff that's provocative, don't they?
Yeah.
Everyone's leaning into it. So, when you're shooting these subjects, do you ever, like I said, you don't want to bruise the scene, as you put it, but do you ever approach your subjects afterwards? Like, you know, you've taken a beautiful photo, and then you've gone and spoken to them and actually let them know that you've taken it. Do you ever do that? Do you ever touch base with your subjects and share what your work and things? Yeah,
absolutely. So again, it depends what the situation is and who it is and what they're doing. It might not call for it, but again, it's just making that judgment at the time. But say I am photographing on the street and I capture somebody, and then after I've taken the picture, then they've realised, then I would approach them and say, hey, I've just taken this picture of you. Here's the reasons why. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. And I'm quite happy being able to talk to somebody and just give them a context of what it is I'm doing. So I'm not just like this weirdo that's walking up and down the seafront all the time. I mean, which I do admit, I am a weirdo walking up and down. So there is that side of it where I do go up to people and say, hey, look, I've just done this. This is the picture. And 9 times out of 10, it's received really well.
Yeah.
And then it'll be a case of, can I get that picture off you? I'd love it. Or can you send me it? And yeah, of course. And it'll just be a couple of days, do the retouching and everything, or the editing, whatever I'm going to do with the pictures, and get that across to them. So yeah.
Yeah. So reason I asked is I saw someone on YouTube who's like taking portraits of people in the street, but then he like kind of follows them for a little bit, and he's got this little personal printer on him, and he prints the shot out and gives it to them. And it's such a heartwarming reaction, every single one he does. Like, he just surprises them with this printed portrait of him. And it's just joy, you know.
You know, I had a similar experience. So I was in Japan last year, and this guy...
Work or...
No, well, actually, it was my honeymoon.
Oh, right, okay.
Honeymoon. So it was a delayed honeymoon, because we'd planned to go the year before, and I hadn't actually planned it. So we never actually made it out there. But we replanned it, went across for Cherry Blossom, which was amazing. And we was in Osaka at the time, and this guy just wandered up to me, and he had a camera around his neck, and he was like signing towards me as if he wanted to take my picture, and he would give us the picture. But I wrongly assumed at the time he was trying to charge for pictures. And I was like, oh, no, it's okay. I've got my own camera. I'll take a picture. Don't worry about it. And he was pretty persistent with this. And I looked at his camera. I realised he'd got something quite bespoke and unique and expensive. So I thought, oh, maybe he's not making money out. This seems more of a passion thing. So I said, yeah, of course. Yeah. Give him a thumbs up and everything. And he took this picture, and it was on a Polaroid back on a medium format camera. And that might not mean a lot, but it was something that was a bit beautiful for me to see. I was like, oh, that's a nice bit of kit you've got there. Anyway, he took a couple of frames, and his whole thing was that he took one as a portrait of me and Jem, my wife, just stood next to each other. One for us and one for him, and that was part of his project. So we've got this beautiful picture of us two on our honeymoon, taken on this really nice Hasselblad camera with a Polaroid back on it, and yeah, it's just a nice moment. And then randomly, so this was in the middle of Osaka, in a massive city in Japan. A few days later, we'd moved on and gone to Kyoto, and we were wandering around this temple, and we just randomly bumped into this guy again.
Just chances of that.
But this is the stuff, I'm talking about, these like chance coincidences. Yeah. This is the type of stuff that just seems to happen. I think there's like a magic or an energy to it where you just paths cross, and if there's supposed to cross, there's supposed to cross. And I think that was one of them times where it was like, that was meant to happen. And if it didn't happen, if I did decline that photo at that time, it was going to happen at the second time. So does
he have an Instagram or anything like that anywhere? Because I'll link it. That's what I'm getting.
Yes,
I'll actually link it so people can check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got it. I will have to dig it out because I cannot remember what the account was. But
it'll be down there anyway.
It'll be down.
Nice one. So you just touched on kit a bit. So you like to shoot with a Leica, right? Yeah.
I am a Leica fanboy.
You are known for it.
Yeah.
But I read online that you admire sort of the limited setup of a Leica.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you feel like having sort of unlimited options on a camera can hinder your creativity at all? Personally, not for anyone else, but for yourself.
Yeah, I think if you've got all options at all times, it is like decision paralysis, and I'm sure that's the same for like a lot of disciplines, no matter what you're doing. So I think having like the limitations of I can only do this, and this, it does sometimes it can be a hindrance. Don't get me wrong, but the hindrance then forces you to come up with a creative solution to work around that problem. That creative solution often leads to something far greater than what the option would have been if I'd have just put, I've got an option on the camera that does that for me, or it swaps over, or it's got incredible high ISO or something like that. That's all of those things just solve problems too easily for, I think, creatives. And I think if we do have like a limited palette to play with, that we have to get outside of our comfort zone. We have to force ourselves to actually think. And I think that is really important within like any creative industry, really. But more so recently, I've challenged myself to shoot with a camera. It's an old Leica. It's a digital one. I do shoot with film as well, but it's a digital M9 for anyone that knows, with a very limited ISO range. So it means it's not particularly sensitive to light. You pretty much have to treat it like film. And I like to shoot into blue hour, which means there's not much light around. Modern cameras are brilliant at that because they've got low light sensitivity, and you can make images pretty much in the dark. It's almost like having night vision goggles on. This thing, not a chance. You've got to be really careful. But the thing is with that, is I can shoot it on a really low ISO, so it doesn't get all noisy. It goes all grainy and everything. I can either lean into that, and that can be part of the aesthetic, which I quite like, or what I can do is go in the other directions where I'll keep the ISO low, which means it's going to be a really clean, nice looking image, but I'll have to slow down the shutter, which means there's going to be motion blur. Now, most people don't want that because you don't get sharp pictures.
It can look quite cool though, doesn't it, when it's used well?
Exactly. So that's what I'm really interested in. So leaning into that direction of, well, I'm going to capture the movement of things, or I'm going to pan the camera, or I'm going to do something that leads to something new. And I did a series a few years ago. I don't have it on my website at the moment. I've taken it off, but basically it was a series of abstract seascapes through winter because I was bored and had nothing else, and there was not really many subjects to photograph. So I went down to the sea and I panned into these quite bizarre seascapes, it was just a creative expression from me. But I produced this work, and I've done some again recently, again because of the limitations of the camera. And I just, you just have that creative itch. I'm just going to do something different to mix it up. And I produced something which I find quite beautiful. And it's unlike anything I've shared in a long time. But then the audience as well has reacted really positive from it. And I think it's that unknown of, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting to make that on the night. It just ticked a box for me because I needed to make, I wanted to make something. I didn't need it, I wanted to. And then it just worked. All the stars aligned, and I produced an image that, it really, really resonated with me and the audience as well. So
it's like you're jamming on a camera, isn't it?
Exactly that. Exactly that. Yeah.
When you were saying that, I was like, it's just jamming on a camera.
Yeah.
It's just going out there and jamming and see what happens.
Yeah. I think that's what, a lot of the time, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of like street photography especially, I think it is just one almost jamming / I think the whole abstract idea, probably the parallel is going to be like jazz music. I think it's that sort of anything could happen. It could just be a random like sax that's just going off in this corner, or all of a sudden someone's just jumped on a piano and is just mashing the keys, and it's just but it's somehow it all slots together and sounds right. That I think is like when street photography works well, and when you're in tune to it and you're in the moment and in the flow. When we all get into that sort of flow state.
Yeah, flow state.
Once you get once we hit that, I mean, all of a sudden it's twilight and where's the whole day gone?
I don't know what it is about street photography. I wouldn't say I've ever been like hugely into photography. I used to do a little bit with Tom, a few years ago. I had an SLR, and we used to go out, but Tom really, really got into it, whereas I kind of didn't. He just carried on, and I never did. But there was that photographer Vivian Mayer, who, have you heard of her?
I have.
Yeah. And for the listeners, basically a guy bought some boxes of old film, didn't he, from a car boot sale or an estate sale or something, and there was just thousands and thousands of photos, weren't there? But the most perfect street photography, and I found her really interested in her works, which was never shown. It was all put in boxes, and she passed away, and there was never seen. She's become popular since she's passed away, hasn't she?
It's such a shame.
Yeah,
it really is such a shame. And there is people out, and I've got friends, and one recently that I've encouraged to share his work, and his idea was I will share it when it's sort of ready, and I get that, I do get that, but he was sat on beautiful work, and I could see the potential for growth. So I pleaded with him to start putting some of his work out there, not just to build an audience. That wasn't the intention, but to allow others to see it, and also so that I could see some of the stuff that he was producing as well. Because he kept a lot of it quite hidden, which I think was a shame. But now he's starting to put it out into the world and show what he's capable of making, and I think that spurred him on to produce more as well.
Yeah,
because then it's a little bit of self-belief as well.
What style is he shooting?
He shoots a lot of street photography as well, but portraits, random little moments and things like that. It's beautiful stuff. It's really nice.
I think what's so good about that Vivian Mayer's work is I've got one similar at home. Mine's a Kodak Duoflex, like a film camera, where you wear it around your neck and you look down into the viewfinder. And I know she used one of them, and I think because she was never pointing a camera from her face to someone else's face, I think she just really managed to capture that raw emotion. And it's in some of the scenery she's taking photos of. It's amazing. It's like America in the 50s. There's like Cadillacs about, and just looks great. But there's something about the emotion you see in street photography that really draws me in. Anyway,
do you know what? That's something I find it's interesting. I think a lot of people forget about the magic of time. Basically, I wish it was how it was in the 50s. But the thing is that you've got today. The thing about today is in 50 years' time...
Yeah, it's going to look great.
It's going to look amazing, and it's going to have that fine vintage to it.
Yeah.
So shoot the now. I've got friends that have said, I hate it when everyone's just on the phones. Everyone's just looking down all the time. I'm like, shoot that. Just because it doesn't look great right now, or because it's your everyday, what's the future holding? Are we going to have phones in our hands in 40, 50 years? Or is it just going to be implanted into our heads? God knows. I mean, I don't want that, but yeah, it could happen.
It will happen, yeah. It will. I mean, I've got a VR headset, and I'd have the implant.
Just download your thoughts straight into Instagram.
It's good fun, mate.
Yeah.
It really is good fun. Which leads me nicely, like, into this question. So, photography is so accessible now. Everyone's got a really high quality camera in the pocket.
Yeah.
Like, are you ever cognizant of that? That like people can take really good photos with not a lot of skill or money, I suppose. Really, you know, it's really easy. What are you doing to sort of stay in front of that curve, or do you just think I'm going to stay true to what I do, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then
I think it is that. And but I think the whole thing with photography, the gear matters to a certain extent. But that's like saying I've got an auto tuner on my guitar, or my guitar can spit out this pre-programmed song, or keyboard probably more than guitar. But I'm sure you could do that.
Or the eye.
Yeah, but then I mean, how many albums have you bought recently that was just a computer program? You buy the artist, don't you? You don't buy that. So I think the idea that everyone's got equal technology, I think that's great. I think that levels the playing field, and I think it makes the barrier for entry particularly low. So, you know, there is no hierarchy in it, and I think this is the thing about Martin Parr said it, that his work is both high and like low art at the same time, which I think is fantastic. Depending on what the situation is, you know, it can be anything and everything, and everyone can now shoot. The problem is, what do you point the camera at? And this is where a lot of people fall down. I mean, I fell down for probably like 15 years, not understanding what to do with. I got the idea of how the camera works and everything. That's brilliant. But now what? Just because you can take a picture with a blurry background, that's technically that's good, yeah. But what does that mean? What are you trying to say with that? And I think that's where a lot of people do stumble, or it takes a long time to get into it. And there is people out there that obviously just step into it day one and go, I've got my vision, I know what I need to, I know what my sound is, I know what my vision is, I know how it's going to be, and they're going to make it be. And the shortfalls potentially, how do I do that technically? But if you've got the technical down and you've got the vision down, then you're onto a winner, aren't you? But I think it's a case of just figuring out where you're going with stuff, what your taste is, what you like. And I think I came into it backwards. I started to strip things away. I was like, I know what I don't like, which was quite interesting for me. If I don't like that and I don't like that, then maybe that's the way I go. And then it's that sort of like fumbling a little bit in the dark until you start.
What was that process for you then? You know, stripping things away.
So I think
what was you doing that you no longer do now?
I tried a lot of different things. So like photography wise, I shot macro stuff, which is like close up of insects and stuff like that. I shot black and white, street photography. I traveled around a lot doing a lot of that sort of stuff. Not that I don't do that now. I still do enjoy doing that. I don't share very much of that, but I love to do it. Fashion bits, a lot more portraits, just anything and everything. Anything you point a camera at and call it a thing, that's what I was doing. And I did fall in love with street photography quite early, but then I moved away from it because I didn't think it was really working for me. But I kept circling back to it. So knowing that I was constantly circling back was quite a good thing for me. So I was like, maybe there is something in this. But then after looking back on everything that I had done, what I did notice was the colour. Even though I was shooting black and white as well, but like the macro stuff, if I was to put like one of my images I produce now today next to one of my images from like 10 years ago of like an insect on a leaf, it was the colour that connects both of those things together. So I found that quite interesting. But for stripping stuff away, it's seeing stuff and going, I don't like that. So looking at a lot of artists' work. I think like with music, you know, when you hear something, I like that, and you hear something else, and you go, I absolutely cannot stand that. Please turn that off. Yeah. That. So I knew there was a lot of stuff that I was turned off by. Maybe it was like photography books, or you go along to an exhibition or something like that. It didn't mean I didn't appreciate it. It just meant I knew that wasn't for me, and that wasn't the direction that I wanted to go in. But then that meant it amplified it when I did see something that I really enjoyed. So I could go along and see an exhibition like the work of William Eggleston, for example. There's something about that work that really resonates. There's the work of who else? Joel Merowitz. That really resonates with me. And then there's some other work that I do appreciate, but it just doesn't quite connect in the same way. And I think there's something about, and again, it's like it's looking for those moments and that one time slot, like in the August evenings when I've got that and it all works. That's what I was looking for, and then I started leaning more in the direction of what would work for me because I knew what wasn't. So that led me down this sort of path, and I'm still walking down that path now. And it continues to. There's always that next step that it's slightly out of sight, and it eludes you a little bit until you've sort of fumbled your way in the dark, and you've figured out what the little tiny steps are to make that next larger step.
Is there anything that's sort of not aligned to the stuff that you regularly do that you're itching to get involved with, or anything that you think you might dip your toes into creatively in terms of styles? Or
so portraiture is something that I do keep circling back to more so recently. It's something I want to produce more of, but I don't, because again, with the type of work that I produce, I tend to be working more. I don't like to interrupt people or scenes so much, but more recently I've pushed myself to go up to people and ask, can I take your portrait? If they work, if the person feels like there's something there for me to explore. Again, that's finding the way as well. I don't want to just take a picture of everyone. Yeah, I've got to be able to connect with them somehow. Yeah, there's got to be something there.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, I'm very much like that. Do you know what I mean? I've got to want to do it. It's got to be fun. It's like I've had people reach out to me like, "Oh, come on the podcast." Like, no, I don't want you on. And I've got to want someone on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's very important. Creatively, you know, to know where you're heading and what you're looking for, and try new things as well. Yeah. So I imagine like with music, you come across creativity blocks and things like that. How do you get, what are your tools for getting past them?
Oh God, this is like, it's one of them big things, isn't it? Because we all go through it. And I think the first time it really hit me, it hit really hard. And I think a lot of people have that first hit of it and you're just like, oh God, no, I've been knocked off the horse. That's it. I'm done. So what I ended up doing was that first year that it happened, I was like, oh, I had to just pack all this in. No, there will be a brighter day. And I think there's something to do with resilience there to it and knowing that things will get better, even though they can't see the light, just knowing that if it's the bad times, there's only one way it's going to go, and that's towards the good times. And likewise, the other way, like if it's really good, like as we're leading into summer now, I know it's going to get really good, but then I know that's going to be followed by almost like the winter drought kind of thing. But I think over the last sort of 5 years, I've learned to just take the pressure off. Yeah. So when I am, and it's seasonal for me because it's when I shoot. And the type of work that I want to produce is mostly done through the summer period. So I know that winter, I'm going to still try and shoot, but I temper myself to know that what I'm going to shoot is going to be crap, basically. I might get lucky. I might produce like
the spot enough.
Yeah, but then I'll just go, do you know what? I don't need to. I don't have to produce an image for it. This is for me, so it's personal to me. And then obviously I can go back through everything that I have shot, and I use the time. I try to use the time to still stay creative, and that's going to be going through like all the stuff that I have shot. And I think there's an education through that as well that I found that I do take myself. And then revisit stuff from like the year before or the year before that, and then I dig out some of the archive and have a look at that. And then sometimes you start to find a bit of a thread of, I didn't really notice that I was shooting this thing or this way or looking at this particular project that way. And then I see an entirely new avenue open up, and then I'm inspired. But then I'm not back by the fact I can't shoot anything in front for 3 or 4 months, which is a pain in the ass, but it's all part of the
Would you say them photos that do make out there that you do share, would you say they come from that review phase, or is it a mixture of both? Like some have come under review and some are just like, oh my God, that is perfect. The second you've taken it, you will be sharing that.
I think there's a little bit of that. I think sometimes when you know, I'm sure it's as soon as you start writing it.
Earlier, like I said, it's some things fall out of the sky and you're like, oh, we're onto something. Yeah. Other times it's a bit, a bit teased, or like that, you go back and revisit an old idea, an old chorus, an old hook or whatever, and you work on that and it clicks.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just not the right time for that particular idea, but it'll work at another time.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. But a lot of the time, like I use social media more as it's almost like a notepad. So I'll put stuff on, and it'll be more of the stuff that I'm producing at the moment, and the stuff that I share I like. But it won't. Not every image is going to be, oh my god, that's 10 out of 10. It's going to be something I'm like, I'm happy to share that. It gives that flavour of the direction that I'm heading in. The stuff that I'm really excited about, and this only happens. So I'll get a handful of images a year. Some years it might be one, or maybe two, or maybe it's none. And then other years I might come away with maybe 5, like images I'm really, really excited about. But it's took an entire year to produce. Then those images will sit on my website. Those are the ones that I want to put into portfolio. And something that, again, I think this is an evolving process as well. I would presume it'd be the same as making an album. But the album is taking 10 years to make. And you'll write a song and you go, oh my God, it's the best thing I've ever written. And then 3 months later, or maybe a year later, you think that was absolute rubbish. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
And then you can trim it. You can trim it. And then you get to a point where it's just the pure essence of what you was really looking for.
Yeah, pure interpretation of your
exactly that.
flow.
And once I think you start doing that, you can then see, you can see the wood for the trees kind of thing. You get that idea of, oh, that's it. That's what I'm after. And it's almost like once you've put that much time and effort in, you can sit back. It's almost like that 36,000 feet view, and you get, I can see the path from here.
Yeah.
See what I was after. I can see the whole thing.
It reaffirms what you do it all for, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm in that phase now. I told you earlier, I've just got back from 5 days in the studio with my band.
Yeah.
And we've been together 3 years, and this is the first, we've recorded 4 tracks as part of a record. It's the first piece of work we've all done in 3 years where we're just completely blown off our feet by it. It's like everything we've done so far has culminated in this piece of work we've just done. And it's such a beautiful feeling because, listening to the songs back, there's not a single thing I change. It's perfect in our eyes, and it is a beautiful feeling. It's quite overwhelming, we finished the studio yesterday. It's like we've all fallen in love with each other. Do you know what I mean? Over this piece of work. It's like we're all madly in love with each other.
That's what I miss. That idea, like you've got that team around.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing, like with photography, it's this type of photography anyway, it's very solitary.
Yeah.
Other than like if there's opportunities to shoot with other people, but you don't. I don't tend to do that. For making my best work, I need to be on my own. Yeah. But the idea that you can be in a studio and you're all there and you're feeling it as a collective, oh my God, that must be
harmony.
Oh.
Yeah, and complete harmony.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so excited to put this music out. I wish I could just show everyone now.
Yeah.
But the lads would kill me. And the worst thing is, I don't even know when we're going to share it yet because we're still in that awkward planning stage where we're not put the final date down, Yeah. But it's all coming. I just need to try not get too excited about it in the meantime because it might flop.
But you know what? The fact that you are excited about it, I think that's the thing right now. Just you've got to live for today, haven't you? You've got to be in that excitement.
On the way home yesterday, I could have got hit by a tractor. I'd have been smiling all the way. Do you know what I mean? I would not have been bothered. I feel like we'd hit our stride.
Yeah, I love that. I do love that.
So, what would you say to someone starting out in photography who's trying to find their style? As someone who seems to have really sort of, I don't know, you just tell when you look at your work, mate. You're just like, I don't know what it is, but it's just your style. Do you know what I mean? I feel like music, you can hear a song by a particular artist and you can immediately attribute it to that person.
Yeah.
And I feel like that with your work. I think I could probably see one of your photos in the wild and think, that's probably Dan's, do you know? Or if not, it's Dan's style at least.
Yeah.
And, this might be blowing smoke up here, but Tom's convinced you've started your own subgenre, street photography. He's genuinely convinced you have.
Wow, yeah.
But what would you say to someone who's trying to find their style?
Don't give up. I think a lot of people give up, and I think the idea of trying to find a style is almost like, oh, I'm going to put this outfit on and that is my style. It's not, and I think just because you produce a certain... I think people mix up aesthetic with style a lot. And I think it's hard to sort of put your finger on it, but I think the idea of trying to find like what your style is, it's your natural default. So it's whatever your natural smell is, I guess, is your style. And you're not going to know that until you go and shoot. And I think I fell into the trap of doing it myself where, oh, it needs to be like high contrast, or it needs to be this, or it needs to be that. No, I think the idea is you need to go and shoot, and you need to go and make a lot of work. And I think Kat Bresson, we mentioned him earlier, said that your first 10,000 photos are going to be crap before you can really start to understand what you're doing. And I think that's quite relevant within the photography realm of trying to find out what you are doing, what you're about, and everything. You need to go and shoot a lot, and it's probably amplified because of digital now. Because it was different with film in the day. You couldn't rattle off 1,000 shots in like 3 seconds. So I think you do need to go and shoot a lot, and I think you need to spend the time. And I think that's the allure of photography. It looks really easy from the outside, and yeah, it is. It's pressing a button at the end of the day. But that idea of finding style, I think you've got to go out, put the work in, and then review it. And you've got to be really honest with what it is that what's good, what's bad, what really excites you. And it is hard, but not being phased so much or steered by what's popular in social media today. Almost produce the work for yourself. And it sounds simple enough, but it's quite incredibly hard to do. But if you was going to, if I was to give you a camera right now and you was going to just walk out and I said, you've got to produce 10 images and these are going in your house, like what are you going to take a picture of? Is that,
To answer that?
Well, go for it. Yeah, what are you going to look for?
Yeah. So I'd be looking at the marina. I'd be looking at the dock tower. Yeah. Obviously quite derelict, so I'd probably take a lot of, pictures of that really around here.
Yeah. do you like that? Is that what you'd want? Is that your style for your house? Is that what you'd want to see on your walls?
Me personally, yeah, but not the missus.
yeah, I get that.
yeah, but no. I mean, perfect answer, mate. Reflecting on what you've just said, if someone had asked me the same, but from my sort of discipline, it'd be exactly the same. Yeah. Put in the work. It takes a lot of time. I particularly like what you said about social media. I think it's, although it is good to kind of tap into trends, what are happening, and kind of ride off the back of them. Don't just be a carbon copy of other people,
Yeah,
I think do see through it.
I think it is hard though, isn't it? Because we all want to be seen and seen to be doing the right thing, but the hardest thing is doing the thing because you believe in it, and that's I think if you're playing the long game, and hopefully the people that are going to be doing this, that they are going to play the long game. That you have to do it for you, and then the more you do it for you, the more it's gonna open up a lot of opportunities for you, because then you'll start to see everything unfold in front of you, and you discover what your style's going to be.
Keep it through as well, innit?
Yeah. You've got to. If it's not fun, you're not going to enjoy it, are you? If you're not enjoying it,
and it can run away with you. Like the music, sometimes I have to take a step back and go, it's getting a bit too much like work. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? We need to have a look at where the fun is. Yeah. Do we need to get back to the fun?
Yeah. It's funny. I literally do that myself. Like sometimes I will be sat or stood along the front. I'm like, I can't be arsed. I'm just going to get my phone, and I do, and then you start scrolling, don't you? Like, what am I doing? This isn't working. I need to do, and then to switch it up, go and do something different. Yeah. Get a coffee or something. Just anything, or only take pictures of the sky today. And then and that sort of starts that creative process of, oh, okay, there's a limitation. What am I going to do? How do I want the sky to look? Just random questions. And I think sometimes that sort of just bounce off the wall in some sort of different direction, that you can sort of spark that idea of, oh yeah, maybe that. But then what does a picture of the sky look like for you? Do you just want to photograph the clouds, or I don't know, I'm going down a weird rabbit hole now, but
no, it's interesting, mate. It's nice watching your brain go.
I don't know. Yeah, I think there is a part of it. But then, this comes back to Eggleston. I think he there was it's a famous thing. Someone had asked him to photograph their wedding, and apparently he wandered around the entire wedding snapping pictures of ashtrays, which I think is brilliant. I think that's a brilliant way to photograph a wedding. But bearing in mind, this is like a fine art photographer, not a wedding photographer, And he just did his thing, and he photographed ashtrays, and apparently what he presented to the bride and groom at the end of the or whenever he did the images, was just a series of pictures of the clouds of the sky during their wedding day, which I think is brilliant. I mean, it's probably not what they was expecting, but for an answer to a brief of photograph my wedding,
he'd done it in his style.
He's done it, and he's done his thing. Yeah. But wow, can you imagine that? If he's the only photographer at the wedding, then you're maybe a little bit knackered for your lineup of everyone. But
someone who's going to get married this year, I know my missus would be fuming if the photographer returned a bunch of photos.
I mean,
of the ashtray. Or
if you want some pictures of dropped ice creams, I'll be your man.
But Dan, it's been great to have you, mate. I've really enjoyed having you on.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed chatting. It's been really good.
Great. And if you've got anything coming up in the future as well that you want to, shout about, then come back on. We'll have a chat about it in a bit more detail.
I'm sure there's a lot.
Speak to you about a particular project or something like that.
Yeah,
I think it'd be really interesting to hear what you got to say about some of your work, a particular piece. Do you know what I mean? So we'll do it again if you want.
Yeah, I would love to. Absolutely.
Brilliant. And everything you've spoken about today, we'll get it linked down below. If you've liked what you heard, hit like and subscribe.